There's one over there.
Yeah, I'm loud enough. Trust me. You know that. I don't know why we're all over here like this. This is true.
We're demonstrating that we're all
Yeah.
together.
Yes. How's your year going? Is it interesting?
That is a loaded question.
Don't say that. Say, oh, it's going good, but there's some things that I could improve. It could improve.
My dad is doing a phenomenal job.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
They are.
They really are.
I am really impressed with the way school has started. I mean, the teachers and the students, it's just, everybody, I hear this word constantly, normalcy, right? It's good to be back. But I'm saying, no, I'm saying, but for COVID.
English.
Yeah, no, we don't have that.
It's probably gas.
Not at
You
all.
don't think people feel good to be back without the
Maybe
mask?
that's why we couldn't find their trackers. Maybe they're not even.
I think all of the other unintended consequences for children
Trackers are zero. So I don't know if she teaches that.
right now with our kindergartners.
Maybe
and
that's
their
why.
Yep. Who have been at home with their
I
parents.
know
who
that
have
math
been
and bio, we did it.
The other thing Barbara reached out to them about today was
haven't received any early intervention. They all showed up on the first day of school.
Yes.
and so she's just like, what's the status of
And I've heard that too. I just have heard a lot of people just love sitting together. It's just that the mask thing is gone. The kids talking and the kids talking and being able to sit. That is, I think that is strange. Where they can sit actually and pause again and do collaborative
support that.
grouping. People are feeling like that's like gold right now because we couldn't do it before, right? So that's what that is the biggest thing I'm hearing is about. My kids can talk to each other. You know, they can sit together.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, but of course, you know.
Yeah, that is true.
I was thinking because this is the one we wanted to purchase, but it was still in publication, so we couldn't.
We will be starting in 3 minutes, guys. We will be starting in 3 minutes. At 3:45. Just be aware our mics are already turned on, so we are ready to start streaming whenever we begin, and we're going to start in about 3 minutes, which is great.
I gotta get jacked up on Mountain Dew before we start.
I feel a little silly using the mic.
Mountain Dew will pump you up, won't it?
I wonder if we would do the live stream.
Thanks, Sherry.
Do you have clickers, or you're going to have to stand up there?
I have one if you want to use it.
Well, you know, because actually the mics are hot, so you actually wouldn't even need that if you had a clicker. It's up to you, dear.
Brian's gonna stay with them. Brian's got a clicker.
Ryan has a clicker, great.
My clicker died at.
I think that he said for the live stream though. You have a clicker. I think he said for the live stream.
You all ready? We've got 2 minutes. Have you met Mrs. Craybill?
We have met, but I
Love
love this sweater.
Thank you very much.
No, I just invited myself to come.
Welcome, anytime.
It's our open meeting. We love when we have guests.
I think that Chase and I have to use the mic because that's on the live stream, I should say.
Whatever. Yeah, sure.
I didn't want you to think that I was trying to project.
No.
Who's our safe?
Thank you. You're welcome. Physical or physical and
Chucking.
Environment.
To get rid of chemicals.
I think that's no, I think that's
Does anyone want to peep in the parking lot and make sure that there's no one walking in before we get started? You mind that doing that, Ms. Greer? You got it?
Good to start.
All welcome.
Do I know how to dispose?
Anybody walking in? Okay.
So
All right, so give me 1 second and you do something and we'll get started. I'll pass it over to you.
absolutely.
Okay? All right. Do you need that?
This is for the live stream.
Oh, thank you.
So it doesn't project, it's for the live stream.
Okay.
That's weird.
Okay.
It's really weird.
Ready? Okay. All right. Good morning. Oh, good morning. Excuse me. Good afternoon, and welcome to our curriculum committee meeting. And we're going to ask Mrs. Craybill if she will welcome us. And if Ms. Justice comes in, we'll stop and allow her to do a welcome as well.
Well, thank you for allowing me to join you today, join your curriculum committee. Board members are just another member of your committee, as any of you are. But I have to just tell you that I value the work that you all do, and I can't wait to hear what you say. That curriculum is our main business, and instruction. And without you and the work that you do, where would we be? Every other department supports your work. If we can't get kids to school on time, you can't do your work. If our kids are hungry, you can't do your work. So all the other departments they are very important, but you are where the action is. So I appreciate you all, and let's just get to it.
Okay. And I wanted to introduce Dr. DeWalt. I know she was ready to jump in, but I want to give you your formal welcome. Dr. DeWalt, Lo DeWalt, as we call her, is our new director of curriculum and instruction. And this is her team, and she will be running this meeting, and I'm going to turn it over to her.
Getting your steps in.
Too bad I'm not wearing my fit back here. Great. So I wanted to give the opportunity. I am obviously a new committee member, being new to the district. So I'm, as Dr. Faison said, I'm Lo DeWalt. I just wanted to give an opportunity if there were any other new committee members to introduce themselves as well. Alrighty then.
Since this is the first one of the year, maybe everybody could go around for the new folks watching that may not know who you are.
Absolutely, great. I'm Lo DeWalt. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
I'm Katie Martin, 612, lead teacher for math. Jennifer Boer, MTSS instruction specialist, pre-K through 12th grade.
Ryan Red, lead K-5 math teacher.
Maureen Hill, lead K-5 ELA teacher.
Charlie Broadfoot, principal at Roland Grice Middle School.
Christy Ann May, principal Castlehan Elementary School.
Jordan Steinhober, principal Alderman Elementary.
Michelle Gray, pre-K instructional specialist.
April Patterson, pre-K instructional specialist.
Patrice Faison, Chief Academic Officer.
Stephanie Craybill, chair of our school board.
Great, thank you so much. And then I also wanted to just put a reminder to mark our calendars. January 23rd is our next meeting date, and based on feedback from last year's curriculum committee, the focus of that meeting will be advanced learning, AIG, as well as some parent resources for our gifted and talented students. And then we'll have our next meeting after that in May, so go ahead and mark your calendar now.
You do not need to pass. Please pick up unless you're standing.
I do need to use it. Okay, so we're going to start, we're going to do a quick little activity. It wouldn't be a curriculum and instruction without an activity. So I'm going to set a 2-minute timer. In front of you, you have some paper. And we're going to work quietly. Honestly, it probably won't even be 2 minutes. It'll probably be about 90 seconds. And I want you to just go ahead and draw a house. That's the instructions I'm giving you. Go ahead and draw yourself a house. You've got about 90 seconds. Oh, thank you everyone for working so quietly. Got about 30 seconds left. Good job. Go ahead and put some finishing touches on your house there. Great. So what I'm going to give you now is about another 30, 45 seconds, and I want you to talk to the person next to you and around you. And I want you to give them a compliment about their house, a suggestion about their house, maybe something they could add to it to make it a little snazzier, and then one idea you see on their house that you might borrow for your own house. So talk to a partner real quick. And make sure you both have time to share. Both receive some compliments here.
Both put bushes to make that nice. Both have a front door. The doorknob and we have windows. Yeah.
Take about 20 more seconds to talk to your partner.
Yes.
I also went to the garage and I tried it. It's pretty.
So I gave you some pretty simple instructions, right? The instructions were to what? Draw a house. And I gave you some time to talk with your peers about your house, right? So what you didn't know is this is actually an assignment, and we're gonna get a grade for it now. Are you ready? So you're gonna give yourself some points. So if you had a door on your house, give yourself a point. If you had 4 windows, give yourself a point. And if 2 of your windows had those panes, at least 6 panes, give yourself a bonus point. If you had a triangle roof, go ahead and give yourself a point for that. And if your chimney was in the center of your roof, get a point for that too. Oh, we have some people who didn't include chimney. That's okay. Those weren't the instructions. What were the instructions? Draw a house. If you had boxes underneath your front windows, like where somebody might put flowers, go ahead and give yourself a point for that. If you had the front and the side angle, Ryan, can I hold yours up here? So Ryan drew. Oh, there we go.
Strong and weak word.
Yep. How about some bushes or some landscaping, a tree?
Yeah.
And did anybody get out a yellow highlighter and paint their house today?
No, there's no time for that.
No time for that. Yeah, it was a quick assignment, wasn't it?
Never even
No
thought
time for
about
that, right?
highlighting.
So, how many of you got 7 points or more? 5 or more points? Okay. Some people got 5.
6.
4. 3. How many of you just got only 1 or 2 points? Right? So, what I want to talk about is this house here. If I had set you up by showing you visually this house, do you think that would have helped you in creating your house if we had talked about this first and you knew what was in my mind before we started? Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Do you think it potentially would have helped you if before we began I told you why we were drawing a house, what we were going to do with that house, and what you were going to learn by creating a house today? See some head nods, okay? How about if you had more time to talk to other people in the room? So Ryan and Ms. Craybell had both done the angled. If more people had seen that and had a chance to talk to each other people might have added that too. So those concepts are exactly what our focus is as instruction for New Hanover County Schools this year. Hi, how are you? Would you like to introduce yourself? I can pass the mic up right over to you.
Oh, yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Judy Justice. I'm a member of the board.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So I'm a few minutes late.
That's right, thank you, Ms.
Chauffeuring kids out of school right now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Justice. So the reason I did that activity was to highlight these are our instructional focuses across New Hanover County Schools for this school year. Unpacking our learning targets before the learning begins so that students know what they are learning and the why behind what they're learning. Increasing student discourse, so students have an opportunity to talk to their peers about what they are learning. And then those visual learning tools that definitely help our students who are in our multilingual program, but also students with disabilities, and every student really can benefit from seeing a classroom that reflects the great work that their teachers are are presenting to them. So this all lives in our instructional framework, which I know this committee spoke about when y'all met in May. And I'm going to show you how parents can access this, but we're going to kind of go through the framework first, and then at the end, I'll take you through the website and show you where it lives so that everybody in the community can see exactly how to get to that. So I also would be remiss not to mention that this work was not done just with a team of Curriculum Central Office folks here. This was done with a lot of feedback from our teachers, from our instructional leaders, and our curriculum champions, as we call them. So they had opportunities to give feedback, to participate via Jamboard, and give suggestions and kind of where the focus should be. And it's also ongoing. The expectation is not that sort of this is the focused area and we're, that's it, we've reached the pinnacle. We want continuous growth for our students. So the framework is our guide way to get to constant improvement. I will say the feedback that we've gotten from teachers so far is that they really appreciate a focus on the fundamentals, the basics, not having an initiative that forces them to learn to juggle and throw plates in the air and do 10 million things. That really what we're asking them to focus on is what's best for kids. So without further ado, we're going to kind of dig into each of these 3 areas, and we're going to start with learning targets.
Okay, so learning targets. This one lies in the planning portion of our instructional framework. As you can see, it's the very first, really it's the first thing you do when you plan a lesson. What are my learning targets? What should my students be able to do at the end of this lesson? So they're not only creating them, we've kind of done that before, we've done a lot of work around learning targets before. What we're moving toward is adding that piece in of unpacking them with our students and making sure that they know where they're supposed to go. And so, of course, here's our learning target today, so we can model best practice. You should be able to articulate why students are more successful when they understand what they are learning in school. So this presentation is what we did with teachers and what we did with administrators early on in the year during the work days. We kind of went through the what, the why, and the how. And what's really been exciting is now that we've started school, we've been able to go out and see these things in action, and not only see them being, done well, but also seeing places where we're like, ooh, we need to go back and maybe, retrain a little bit on certain pieces of it. So it's been really exciting to see this shift, especially in my world with secondary. Yes?
Okay, I started teaching in 89, 88. This is objectives, goals. You always put it up, the kids know. So some of the terminology is different, but this is basic, and this is what teachers need to be doing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
A return to the fundamentals.
Well, I don't think it ever got away, because I've been in our classrooms for those 30, 40 years, and they're always basically the same. So just...
I think the other shift is really making them interactive with students. So I was actually at Wex High School today, and we were talking to some kids about learning targets, and I think previously a lot of times they lived either with the teacher or for the teacher, so they were on the board, or sometimes they were printed really small so kids couldn't always see them. And what we've been working with our teachers and principals to do a lot this year is making them really interactive, so the kids are unpacking the vocabulary and responding to them. So
yeah, and that's wonderful, but that's what you do anyway. That's what a good teacher does. So I'm trying to, I see terminology change, but that's what you do anyway when you introduce a lesson, or you can, I'm just curious why.
Well,
go ahead.
So okay. I think, being at different schools with different admin at certain times, you may call it something different, or you may do something different with it. We're just sort of now like leveling the playing field, going back to again, this is what, as a collective, as a district, this is what we're doing across the district versus we're going to do essential questions here, we're going to do learning objectives, IK statements. We're just trying to
So it's a common vocabulary.
Correct. Yes,
yeah. I think the other thing to keep in mind about the framework is this is the floor, not the ceiling. So this is what we're saying is baseline for all students across New Hanover County schools. But of course, teachers have the ability to ramp it up even more. I saw a teacher today who used like an actual visual target on his board that the students moved it to, and then he used that as his pre-assessment for the next lesson. So,
and I would add too, because it's a very good point, but I would add, when we're talking to our teachers, a lot of them love this because we posted it before, but a couple things we haven't done. We haven't put it in student-friendly language. We haven't unpacked it with them, and we don't keep referencing it with them and closing out. So the teachers that I'm hearing from love the fact it's a reminder of best practice. So it's not something new. No, it's not. But it's a reminder of, we just don't put it up there. We don't put it in as a standard, because that's what we were seeing last year, right? We saw teachers had the standard up there. And some of them did have the language a little different, but to go back and keep reminding the students, what are we learning? It's like the goal of what we are learning is what every student should know. And then we close out with that. And teachers will tell you that that's the part that is new for them, right? Is we've always had it posted, Dr. Faison, but keep referencing it and going back to it is a part that we're coming back to. That's what most of them are saying anyway. I mean, principals, what do you think?
Well, I think that this is like letting the students in on what we're doing and why, because the learning target is aligned to the objective, but it's not necessarily the objective. So we're breaking objectives down, unpacking them into student-friendly terms so that I can walk into the student and say, hey, what are you doing today? And they should be able to tell me, they should, and really understand exactly what it is, because the teachers are constantly providing them with that why. Oh, this is why we're doing this, or this is what we're doing, and this is why.
Well, and what I would say too is, how many times have you walked into a classroom and, what are you doing today? What are you learning? I don't know, we're doing a worksheet, right? And students, they don't necessarily see the learning unless we're really pointing to it. And so just not making it a mystery is one of the reasons we went back to this. And I would also say when we did online learning during the pandemic, I think a few of the fundamentals that we just did, like, teaching 101, I think some of those maybe we kind of got out of the habit of doing while we were online. And so it's been really nice to kind of bring us all together.
And I just wanted to let you know, when I've been visiting schools in the very beginning, it is so enlightening and it feels so good to hear the students. Like, I was in a carpool line one day and there's the principal, don't forget, boys and girls, what is your learning objective for today? And had been in classrooms. I was just at Castle Hayne. I sat down with a little girl. What are you doing today? And she was able to say, we're working on our letters. And this is like a little first grader that, like, what the heck? I don't remember, my kids really being asked that and being able to articulate that. And so I just wanted to commend you all that it's getting out there. And I had to be at the end of a day and listened where the teachers going back through, so what did we do today? What did we accomplish? And they're able to just raise their hand and jump right in. And they know how to ask their teacher questions. So I love it. It's just, no matter why we did it, and it's making an impact in week 3. So thank you.
I'm really glad this is reinforcing things that have been around for 20, 30, 40, 100 years probably, okay? This is great. Thank you. And, because they've been talking about the instructional framework, it's good to see how you're implementing them and what it actually is, which honestly is best practices and always has been.
Absolutely.
And I'm very disappointed to think that you think kids don't get it and haven't been getting it, because I know they have, because they are working.
Well, objectives are written for adults, and this is more for the kids.
Which you're supposed to do as a good teacher.
The kids to own their learning.
This is common good practices.
Right.
Well, and I think the self-reflection part too, at the end of them
Always
being able to say, like, oh, did I get that? Whether it's a fist of 5. And so we're going to kind of look at that as well.
Can I just share one thing?
Oh, yes.
There is a teacher at Winter Park where her students actually, once they have mastered the learning target, they initial that they mastered the learning target. So it also adds that a level of accountability when we're revisiting, and we've seen some very positive effects from it. The teachers, I think when the teachers put this together and said, hey, this is one of the things that we need to remember as best practices, I think this is a great place to start.
I love that. I heard about that teacher.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's really
yeah,
awesome.
yes,
And
it's
so,
awesome.
and so, you know, just reminding teachers that they're making their learning targets, they're making sure they're aligned to the standards, of course, and then, you know, discussing and unpacking it with their students at the beginning of the lesson and then referring back to it later on, and making sure that students can, you know, check for their own understanding. Of course, students, again, they're engaging with it. They're not just seeing it posted on the board or on slide 1 of their PowerPoint. And then they're able to really demonstrate that understanding and really self-assess. We're really trying to incorporate this with our turn-in talks and our student discourse as well, which we'll talk about.
I would also say for any parents that are watching on the live stream too, that, you know, how often have you asked your kid, what'd you learn today? And they say like, right? That's a pretty common answer. So you can also rephrase that, like, what was your learning target? Did you meet your learning target today? And open up that dialogue with your student too, because we're working really hard on them being able to articulate that, and we know our families are great partners and that work with us too.
All right, and so here are just a few different examples. We have several. We've been out snapping pictures and really looking at, you know, the teacher breaking down those academic vocabulary words or those content-specific vocabulary words as they're going through it with their students. I think that's a PE, I think that's a gym, which is so cool because our elective teachers often, their space isn't necessarily conducive, so we've worked really hard to make sure even in the gym we have a place to have those learning targets posted. So it's been really cool to see these in action. All right, finally, we just wanted to show a quick example of a teacher unpacking a learning target. If you will, I think you have to hit play. Yes.
And this is quick. It's just about a 90-second video here.
Learning targets as it relates to algebra can be very abstract.
And this is one video that we shared with our teachers as part of
that is going to stay with you forever. Volunteer read it to me. I can solve linear equations in one variable. I can solve linear equations in one variable. Facilitators, I want you to give one word from your teammates. What's important in this learning target? Equations. 8, 7, 6, 5. Let's hear from Taiwan's team. Who's the facilitator over there? Linear. So, what does it mean for it to be a linear equation? So I want you to look at the word linear, see what words you see inside that word. Come back in 30 seconds with the dot. The graphs and when you did the linear line, all I need some more lines up there. 9. 8. Thumbs up if you came up with.
So that's just one example of the way some teachers do that. We know that teachers are doing that here in New Hanover County, and we're actually working with the communications department to make sure we get some photos and videos of our teachers doing this work too. While that teacher was lovely and was great for helping our teachers gain some of the knowledge, we definitely want to make sure we're highlighting our own because they're doing awesome things in their classroom. But we're going to switch gears and talk about discourse. Pass it over to Ms. Red.
Yeah. Not that anyone's better than the other one, but we really do love student discourse. It's our favorite. So our student discourse lives under instruction and then under student engagement. And what we mean by engagement is not like, oh, we're having fun, right? Like we're actually engaged in the learning together. So student discourse, we're defining it as like structured routines where students use academic vocabulary or language and vocabulary. And I'll let you read this for a second. So really, not only is it student discourse, but it's also like some collaborative learning, right? Like we're in this together and we're taking ownership of this learning as a group.
Ryan, one thing that I learned as I was following you guys along on student discourse is that there is a difference between discourse and discord. And because when I first read those, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to be in there, like, we're going to be arguing with each other. But I don't know if anybody else had that, or if I'm just the only one, but it really struck a note with me that discourse versus discord.
Yes, and structured, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's going to hopefully help get away from the discord.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a question. What do you think? Would you rather be 4'5" or 7 foot 7 inches? Turn to your partner, just turn to any partner you have, and just turn and talk. Tell them what you think.
You two do that, and I'll do the push-up. Okay, which one would you rather be? I have family that is 6'4", 6'5".
All right, we're going to come back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, would anyone like to share? Raise your hand if you'd like to share. Okay.
I'm staying short.
You're going to stay short. Why?
Because I'm short.
You know, it's safety, you know it.
Would anybody else like to share?
I said 4.5 because it's easier to get pants hemmed than to find.
Oh, good point.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
So how many, if you guys are my students, right? Like how many students did I actually hear from?
Two.
Mm-hmm. How many of you actually spoke?
To each other?
Yeah. Everybody. Right, but as the teacher, if I'm just kind of up here, just telling you guys to turn and talk, and I only call on 1 or 2 kids to speak, how many am I actually hearing from, engaging their understanding of? Yeah, just the 2, right?
Or 4, because you've heard from each other.
Well, but that's also 2, that's the other part, right? I gotta walk around and listen to what everybody's saying. Now this time, we're gonna make this a little bit more structured. So, remember your letter,
Okay.
A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. All right? So A, you're going to partner up with B. Everybody knows their partner? All right. So I'm going to show a question, and I want you to take about 30 seconds to think about your response before you give it, okay? So we're not going to say anything. Here's your next question. Would you rather have your flight delayed by 8 hours or lose your luggage?
What?
We're thinking. You have to pick one or the other.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, in just a second, you're going to turn and tell your partner. We're going to start with B's are going to go first. You are going to tell. You're going to tell your partner your answer, and you're also going to look them in the eye. You're going to make eye contact. And then if partner B or A has any follow-up questions, they can ask them. Okay, ready? Okay, B's, go ahead and talk to A.
Then I have a whole other.
Are we supposed to switch or just leave it at that?
8 hours out.
Okay. All right, so now our B's have had a chance. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, A's, turn to your B's and tell them which one you would rather have happen.
I don't want to lose it. On the other hand, I always have fun in 8 hours in strange places. That's just me. It's an adventure. But I don't want to lose my stuff, but you'd be shocked when I come here. But I have lost it. No, it does not show. It does not show back up again. No, that it doesn't.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. So I actually, by walking around, got to hear everybody, but in a very structured way, right? So you guys weren't talking over one another. I could know who exactly I was listening to at that point as the teacher. But also, I'd like to highlight 2 responses. Number 1, Dr. DeWalt, what did you say?
I'd rather be flight delayed because I like sitting in airports. I like to people watch. I like to watch the planes take off.
Yes, me.
I like an airport.
I know. I thought that was very interesting. And then also a humorous one.
8 hours.
Just be aware.
I want to go home. So I'd rather lose my luggage so I can get to the house.
Yeah. So what were the differences, just think, what were the differences between the first one, which was just turn and talk to your partner, just turn and tell, versus the second one?
Well, you made us think first, so we had our response ready.
Right, so you had a response ready. Yep.
We both had to respond, regardless, both partners had to respond.
Right, so it was structured. You knew who was going first, who was going to win, what you were supposed to say. So it was very structured in that way, especially for maybe even our language learners, our MLs, to give them a chance to think about what they're going to say without that fear of being overtalked. And then also, if you think about in partner talk, sometimes if it's not structured, who are the ones who typically do the talking? Either stronger personalities, or
the directions.
Yeah, or the ones who know the answers, right? Like if you think about it in that lens, is that the other students don't necessarily get a chance to speak. So we're really pushing structured and routine, right? We know we're always going to do the same routines.
Well, and you also got to call out which ones you wanted to highlight. You wanted everyone to hear her answer. So it seemed strategic.
Yeah. So we have a list of some teacher moves, student moves. You have to plan for discourse, right? You can't just, as the teacher, you can't just say, we're going to read this book, now let's talk about it. Because if you've ever been in a secondary class, most likely, what are those guys going to do as soon as you release? They're going to start talking about all the things that have happened, outside, on the weekends, at night, not focused necessarily on the topic at hand. So giving clear directions and question prompts. This is my favorite, circulating and listening. So like Katie said, we could be very strategic about who we call on and why we call on them, because sometimes their answers may serve our learning target, right? And then scaffolding academic discourse. So for content and language, especially again for our MLs or for struggling learners, they may need a little help. So with a sentence stem, I think this because.
Or some direction, like in the house activity, right? I prompted you of the type of conversation that I wanted to have.
So on the other side of that, right, so what are students doing? They're using academic language. I know those weren't questions that elicited academic response, language from you. However, it was about the content at hand. And participating in the discussion, which is where the structured part of it comes in. And then, again, students explaining their thinking, which I love. And then listening to their peers, which, guys, that is great. We've come off these few years where students haven't really been able to engage in productive conversations. That's really what we're going for here. So, but first, and this was sort of what we showed teachers and administrators at the beginning, you can't just, as a teacher, just can't walk in and say, again, we're going to talk, right? We have to plan for it. We have to show students what it looks like to talk, especially in a content-specific classroom, like math, for instance. So this is an anchor chart from a teacher at Coddington, a fourth grade teacher. She had her students participate in some conversations, and then they got to feel what it was like to have math discourse, why we were doing it, and then also what does it look like and what does it sound like? And also maybe what it isn't. Here's an anchor chart for our little guys, right? It's how could we show them how to engage in either academic or non-academic conversations? Actually, this was several years ago from my classroom, but we started off very similarly doing a math task at the beginning that was low risk, right? It was just fun, finding numbers. And then, and then I took pictures of them. So what did it mean to work as a group? What did you have to do? What did it mean to talk to your partner and to ask for them to elaborate on their thoughts? So Sarah's not here to do this part. She loves this part. But what do we want? Respectful discourse. There's your part. When do we want it? Now.
Agreeable to me, but I'm interested in yours.
It's not as good. It doesn't land well without her.
I just wanted to, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I just want to add to that too, that much like the learning targets, this isn't new, right? This is what is best practice, and that's what the framework is really all about. What do we already know is good for kids? We know in this county we've got lateral entry teachers coming in, we've got some great college partners, but they also have been online in their universities for the past few years. And so we need to make sure that when we're providing the professional development, this framework helps us to structure for those new folks who are coming in to make sure that they have the same expectation of how we engage with student discourse. We've got plenty of teachers who this is old hat for them. This is what they do day in and day out. And so we've got the opportunity to do some professional development that extends that for them to a more advanced way too, to get in not just a turn and talk, but how do you increase the rigor of your turn and talk? How do you make things more advanced? And we're planning to do that with our principals and also with our instructional coaches, because we know just like we differentiate for kids, we have to make sure that we as curriculum are differentiating for our teachers too.
You know, one thing too, I think,
No, go ahead.
that what I see when I substitute is that if you're doing it in your classrooms, the kids know what's going on. So if the substitute isn't doing that, they're like, oh, Ms. Graybill, it's time for us to talk. It's time for partner talk. Or, so kids really love that, that structure, because they end up leading the class, when there's a stranger, in their class.
And one thing I'll say is the teachers are saying this one they are really, really excited about because of the simple fact they are remembering they have to be intentional. So many times as teachers, we can easily say turn and talk, but if you do student discourse and you do it the proper way, you have to set some structures. So, I was at Porter's Neck and the teachers were doing a PLC and they were talking about we have to intentionally plan this discourse. And that's the big thing about this, because if you're going to do this well and it makes sure it's structured and have the academic vocabulary, it has to be structured. So there's been some good discussion around this one.
And I think that goes along with all three of these pieces, because it has really opened up the door. We have been doing bits and pieces of this throughout the district in different ways and calling it different things, but now we are getting information from the top, and these are the expectations, and we can have those conversations in our planning and be intentional, which is really the most important part. So moving from unpacking our learning targets and student discourse, we started a conversation with teachers about which classroom would be most engaging for you to learn in. And so with our teachers, we had each classroom blown up larger on a separate slide, and we utilized the think, pair, share again. So remember your A and B partners that you just had. Ryan, you're a B. Think through, look at classroom A. Think about, would this classroom be engaging for me to learn in? Or how would I feel about learning in this classroom? Then think through B, and then look at C. And what I would like is, I would like my A's to tell my B's which classroom they would feel most engaged in and why. And we'll go ahead and start that conversation. I'll give you about 30 seconds to tell B which classroom they think they'd be most engaged in and why.
I'm sorry, I can't get a good vision of what's going on there.
There's students sitting near each other, and also clean, organized, there's not stuff everywhere. I think it's okay.
With the exception of like, but yes, but the content. I mean, I started earlier, so
We're taking
Okay, so I heard a couple things as I went by. Miss May, I would love for you to share some of the thoughts that you were sharing about which classroom.
I said C because there's partners, so there's students sitting with each other, but also it's clean and there isn't stuff all over the wall. There's not like an overstimulating wall space. And then if it's the beginning of the year, if it's this time of year, then you can build up those resources for the walls together with the students.
Mm-hmm. And I heard the same thing echoed over in this group where they talked about as the year goes on and we build some visual supports for our classroom, within our classroom and with our students, then those would go up so that we can not only build it with the students, but then also reference it throughout teaching along with our standards, so that they're seeing it with our unpacking of standards, but they're also seeing it with our visual learning tools. So we are going to move in and talk about visual learning tools. Our visual learning tools are also in the planning portion of our instructional framework. And one of the things we've really talked to teachers about is not only do you provide the tool, but you reference it throughout your instruction. And I know when I reflect back on my time in the classroom, I had a lot of anchor charts. And we made them together, check and check. But sometimes I really did forget to reference it throughout the instruction. And that really does, that's the part that teaches our students to use it as a tool for their learning. And it helps them become an independent learner for themselves. Because when I know where to look to gain that instruction, if I'm unsure, then I have a tool that I can reference and go back to when I need it. And when I feel confident, I don't have to. But it is there as a tool for me to use. We did talk about and note a few of the visual tools that may be used: anchor charts, graphic organizers, word or sound walls, diagrams. Those are not new tools, but again, it's all about that intentionality piece and how you plan. And so we did want to come up with a definition for visual learning tools. And when we thought about our definition for that, we really wanted to kind of highlight the fact that learning is often invisible. And so our learning tools help us think through our thinking so that we can really gain a specific skill or process. Because a lot of times we're learning a process through those visual tools, and it helps us think through the steps. And so then we wanted to provide a visual for our teachers to really kind of think through what a visual learning tool can do to support our students. One of the things that I found really interesting is that 90% of information is transmitted to the brain as visual, and 40% of our learners learn better visually. And so if we're able to provide that little extra scaffold for our students, it really is going to support them as they're growing in skills.
So after we talked about visual learning tools, we really wanted to highlight some of the ones that we've seen across our district and the good work that we've seen our teachers do. And so like Jen said, there's a number of tools, and these aren't new. Our teachers have been using these, but it's just how can we leverage these tools even more to support our students and to just make our teaching even more effective than it already is, right? So one of the things that we talked about was anchor charts, right? And we see these a ton in elementary school, but the feedback that we've gotten since we did this was that our secondary teachers have said, anchor charts are something that's kind of new to me. They're not something that I particularly always did with my students. And so it was really great to be able to share the work that we see. These are two examples of anchor charts from Mary C. Williams. The one on the left we wanted to highlight because, one, we loved how she, this is Alex Moore, and at the time she was a third grade teacher. She teaches fifth grade now, but she made a kind of a focus area in her classroom. So her students, when they needed support in math, they knew where to look in the classroom, where the tools were going to be. The other thing that I want you to notice from that picture is the ownership the students have. So, right, we don't want anchor charts just to look beautiful and just to be up on our walls. We want them to really show our students thinking and have their language in it, right? So you can see that she's created this with her students, but also the students have had a lot of input when you look at those sticky notes. The one on the right-hand side is from a fifth grade classroom at Mary C. Williams, and you can see the students thinking all over that. And what I loved about that lesson, we were actually in the classroom when that lesson was happening, was you could see students making connections to their peers' thinking along the way. So as they saw and read their peers' own thinking about what the theme was in the hill we climb, they were able to deepen their understanding along. So it increased student discourse, but it also deepened our students' understanding. So one of the things that we want to see with anchor charts is that our students play a part in the creation process so that they have ownership over it. And like Jen said, it's not just in creating it, it's in referencing and modeling how we use that tool throughout our teaching so that when our students go and work independently, they know how to use that tool on their own as well. And so just some other examples that we've seen is thinking about student discourse, right? How do we support our students who might struggle to jump into the conversation? So providing sentence stems in our classrooms so our students have that framework to begin the conversation can be a really helpful tool, not only for our ML students, but for our EC students and just students who might just be stuck, right? It's their turn to talk, but they're not sure how to jump into that conversation. Giving them that sentence frame and having it posted in the classroom can be really helpful for them. And this is a tool that's new in a lot of our classrooms. We saw a lot of our teachers pick this up last year, but this is a sound wall. And so in the past in our elementary classrooms, what we really saw were word walls, and that was to support building vocabulary and helping students make connections in the content that they were learning. But as we've been going through our letters training, in Unit 2, our teachers learned a lot about phonemic awareness, and that to support strong phonemic awareness, having a sound wall in our classroom is a really helpful visual tool for our students to help with articulation and the correct letter sounds. So our students who, especially thinking about our second grade students who have been learning letter sounds behind masks, right? Helping them see the visual of where your mouth goes and how you form those letters, where your tongue is, where your teeth are, can be a really helpful tool. This is from Ashley Hawkins at Pine Valley, and what I loved about this is she didn't buy these materials. She took pictures of her own students' mouths, and as they were learning those sounds and introducing those letters in kindergarten, she was adding those to her chart. So her students can use this tool around the classroom independently. And so truly, like, we really just thought about what are the teacher moves when it comes to visual learning tools and what are the student moves. And the biggest thing is that they're co-created across our classroom. And so that our students and our teachers have ownership over the learning, so that our students' thinking shows up in the work that we're doing. And is posted around the classroom, and that our teachers and our students clearly understand the purpose of that tool, that it's not just something that hangs on our walls, but it's truly a tool to help them in their independence. When visual learning tools are used well, they are the other teacher, right? And so as the teacher releases independence to the students are working independently, but they know that there are tools around the classroom that help them if they get stuck. And that's truly our wish for all of our students, is for them to have ownership and independence in their learning. And truly, like Jen said as well, our thinking is abstract, and visual learning tools help make it concrete, meaningful, and memorable to our students along the way.
You were saying some great things, and I was wondering if our parents had an opportunity real time to ask questions of you. Because I know some of the things you were saying I could see being a question. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Do we know if we can?
Well, I can. Is there anybody, any tech people out here? I mean, my best from my experience is if they are doing it in real time, somebody can online type questions.
We are live streaming this right now. Maureen, would you just?
Yeah, because I just want to make sure, because some of the things you were saying, I could see some parents having some questions.
While they're checking on that, I did also just want to, for anybody who's watching the live stream, to make sure that they know where they can get this list of these 3 best practices that we're focusing on, but also all of the pieces. You know, we only highlighted 3, but there's a lot more in the instructional framework, because our teachers were really awesome and gave us a lot of feedback as we were putting this together. So when you're in the New Hanover County Schools homepage, if you go to divisions and instruction and accountability, there is there we go. There's a link for curriculum and instruction, and it's about halfway down the page. Oh, well, it's not loading right now. Let me reload the page here. There it is. So it is right there, and you can open it up. It's a fairly lengthy document because there's a lot of great information in there. It is teacher facing, but we definitely encourage our parents to take a look as well, so that they know what is going to be happening in their child's classroom as they are learning. So that's the framework. Are there any other questions before I pass it over to our fabulous pre-K team?
Can I ask, did you just, and I'm sorry, I just get in my head, did you show where parents to go where they can see what's being taught in their classroom?
I did. I can do it one more time. Yep. So
you did that? I'm sorry.
Divisions and academic accountability. And then this first link is curriculum. and it's about halfway down the page.
Can you show them what it, I just want to make sure everybody, because that was a question that parents said, go, can you show them like
Parent resource document.
Yeah, the parent page.
You just keep scrolling down.
Oh, yep, it's all on the same page. So underneath are our curriculum overviews. So if I am the parent of a 6th grader, I can open this up and I can see for each content area what is the pacing or the overview of that course. So here's my 6th grade math. And then there's also family resources built. Let me zoom in so you can see that a little better. Family resources for each unit as well. Again, we know that parents are our biggest partners in this work, and so that is accessible. I will say, I believe that all of science is posted now. We did have a new science person start over the summer, and so we were a little delayed getting some of those out, but they should all be up now.
Thank you, Dr. Durrell.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, pre-K, can I pass it over to y'all?
Before, I'm sorry, I walked
yes,
in,
please,
like,
go
can
ahead.
you just really, like, 30 seconds, everybody just introduce themselves so I can see where they're coming from, department-wise and stuff?
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Dr. DeWalt. I'm the new Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Okay.
I'm Katie Martin, 612 math lead teacher.
Ryan Red, K-5 lead math teacher.
Maureen Hill, K-5 ELA lead teacher.
Charlie Broadfoot, principal at Rolling Grace.
Christy May, principal at Castlehain.
Jordan Hanover, principal at Alderman.
Michelle Gray, pre-K instructional specialist.
April Patterson, pre-K instructional specialist.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
This was actually a request from the previous meeting, am I correct, pre-K?
Yes.
This was asked to have you share some information, am I correct?
Yes, there, a bunch of the other departments shared what they were doing, and so we volunteered to show what
Great.
we do. All right, so I'm Michelle Gray. I am one of the pre-K instructional specialists for the pre-K program. So just a little bit about our program. We serve 1,006 children in New Hanover County. Supported 19 schools, so 10 of those schools are public schools and 9 of those schools are private sites, which we serve the NC Pre-K program, and they're all 4-year-olds. And so there's about 200 plus staff that support the pre-K children throughout our district, and we're funded through Head Start. We have 260 Head Start children. NC Pre-K is 607 children. The county is 180. And so we also receive some Title I. The county commissioners expanded this year by 6 classrooms, which has been a lot of fun. And then we also have some grants we look at. We do the Smart Start grant every year, which helps fund meets ends with curriculum for our creative curriculum. Up there is also listed where all our sites are. So we are at Wrightsboro, Castlehain, Freeman, Mosley, Johnson, Howe, Blair, and Murrayville. And then CREC. And then our private sites, we have 6 child care networks throughout Wilmington. And then we are also at Excel on Vision Drive, Kids and Company on Newkirk, Kids and Company on South College, and CDC. So we serve only 4-year-olds at those private sites. North Carolina does have early learning standards, which our curriculum is aligned with. And so the North Carolina Foundations for Early Learning and Development looks at the whole child. So we look at all parts, the health and physical of a child, the social and emotional, the approaches to learning, language development, and cognitive development. And so with our funding sources, NC Pre-K, Head Start, and then the county commissioners, they align their funding program with NC Pre-K and Head Start, so it mirrors each other. And so our mandated curriculum, which is aligned with the North Carolina Early Learning Standards, is the creative curriculum, which is a research-based curriculum, and it's comprehensive. So it has our social emotional along with the math and literacy, cognitive, language, all those wrapped into it. The assessment for that is Teaching Strategies Gold. And so up here has a little bit of both of our mandated curriculum and assessment. The state after COVID, has done a lot of really great things with creative curriculum. And so everything is digital now. It's a digital platform, which is also very family friendly. And so teachers are able to send lesson plans to parents, family activities to parents. There's a two-way communication built in there. So teachers are able to share the progress with families. Like I said before, it supports the whole child. It is a project-based investigative learning approach. And has the mathematics and language and literacy components as well as the social emotional. And then teaching strategies is how we assess our children. And so we use that curriculum to meet those objectives. And that allows our teachers to observe children, collect that data, and individualize that instruction based on where the children fall within their developmental progression. And then at the bottom here, I have linked the alignment between the creative curriculum and teaching strategies with the North Carolina Early Learning Standards. And so, if you didn't know, pre-K goes over 36 objectives, 38 including the English language acquisition part. And so our teachers are leveling children on 38 objectives, or 36, 3 times a year. And so as they'll do their first checkpoints in November, and they will level their children on all of those. That's when they have their first parent-teacher conference, and they go over all this with their families. And all of these objectives are actually, they are within the first 6 weeks. So the first 6 weeks, building your classroom community, all of these objectives are hit. And so it's really finding out where the children are in that developmental progression and meeting them where they are. And then New Hanover County Schools, last year, the district had some initiatives for us to get to expose children to some of the curriculums being used in elementary. And so New Hanover County Schools has purchased Foundations, Heggerty, and Eureka Math. Last year was our first year, and this is our second year, so we're really working on how we can implement these curriculums within our core curriculum of creative curriculum.
What is
Yeah.
Heggerty? What's Heggerty?
Heggerty is a phonological phonemic awareness.
Okay.
Quick 6 to 8 minutes little program that they will start doing.
And we're doing Heggerty, just so you know, they're starting in our pre-Ks, but we also purchased it this past year with our literacy intervention funding, and so we were able to purchase it for all of our K through 3rd grade teachers. So there's a kindergarten curriculum, a primary curriculum, and then an intervention system for our 3rd grade.
I know you've talked about that before, so I apologize. I knew it was it was one of the two. It was either
new
math or
this
like
year to us. It is new. Some of our schools had adopted it early, and they were the ones who came to us and said, "We want this." And so we were able, that along with the learning that they're all doing through letters, they saw that they had a need for phonemic awareness support, and so we were really thankful that we were able to do that this past year.
I just wanted to add too that the programs that New Hanover County Schools applied aren't meant to overtake creative curriculum, that is the core curriculum, but that opportunity for exposure to help them be ready for kindergarten, and also for teachers to have a more resource-rich classroom. But there is, they have some flexibility in how those are used. It's not a sit down and listen. It's still pre-K. It's still set up for pre-K.
It's still pre-K. Our funding sources have an approved list of curriculums that we are mandated to use, and so creative curriculum is from that list. And it's also the curriculum that the state has adopted to, after COVID, had purchased all of that digital resource is for all of our teachers that have NC Pre-K in public school. And so we have ensured that all of our county teachers and Head Start teachers also have access to all of those resources as well. And those resources are, is almost like a bottomless pit. So there's a lot of intentional teaching cards where teachers are able to click on that intentional teaching link and level their students right within that activity and show that data. So we're super excited about that progress.
Okay, you keep using the word level, and I thought I knew what you meant, but could you give me Give me an explanation of what
Yeah.
terminology.
Yeah, so within teaching strategies, there are progressions and developmental progression. And so within each of those progressions, there's a level. And so we want children to
Okay.
be within their colored band. And so when we are,
Thank you.
yeah. And so it's making sure that our children are,
Reaching.
reaching their
Okay.
goals.
Reaching goal, okay.
So like New Hanover County purchased these for our program last year, and we are working on being able to implement those, as Dr. DeWalt said, as appropriate, as long as we are meeting our core curriculum. And so this was talking about the foundations in Hegarty and Eureka Math and how they support early learning. And so here is our instructional team. Shannon Smiles is the Director of Early Childhood Education. I'm Michelle Gray. April Patterson is the Instructional Specialist. And then Allison Wine does our behavior support. So we are out and about. If you have any questions, we are mostly 90% of the time within our public schools. We do support our private sites as the contracting agency. So we do support those children. And all of those children do come into our building for kindergarten, and so it's important that we are, reaching those teachers as well. Those children are just doing creative curriculum, though.
Appreciate y'all for joining us today. Thank y'all for coming and joining us today. Are there any questions before I wrap this up? Okay.
No, this was awesome, and Dr. Faison was not able to get to her presentation at our latest PTA council meeting, but all the parents who were there want to hear that. So the president, Bernice Johnson, will be reaching out, and that you may get more questions from that after that, because they were, and she still has your presentation and could do it, but it's much better to have it done by you are subject matter experts. But this is a great presentation, and I think school PTAs could easily have, maybe even at their curriculum night, have a little overview or something. I mean, it's up to you guys, but the more parents know the same language, the easier it is for them to get involved and to practice clicking through step by step. You want to know what I'm doing? Here's what overall, and then you go to my syllabus, and here's what I'm doing daily or weekly. So this is really good. This is a good use of us being behind the computer instead of, like all the time behind the computer.
One thing I want to just say is to remind parents that are listening, and to all of us, when we're walking in a classroom, to ask the question, what are we learning? What are you learning? Instead of what are you doing? Because the learning is the part that we want to make sure we're asking kids. So that little tweak, we know research says when kids know what the goal of the lesson is and where we're trying to take them, it is easier for them to attain it. So parents, just, Dr. DeWalt, you had said, and I said, wow, we think alike on that one. You are our partners, so when they jump in the car, ask them, what was your learning target for today? Were you able to talk about that learning target? And does it live in your classroom? Can you see it somewhere? So thank you to the team. Thank you to the wonderful principals in the pre-K who came out.
Champions.
And the curriculum champions. Yeah, and our curriculum champions, they are where the instructional framework started. We started with teachers. They took this back to their teachers and you guys know because you have curriculum champions in your building, and the teachers created this. So that's why we love this instructional framework. And the biggest positive we've heard this year is we have a common vision, we have a common language, and then they created it, right? So we're proud of that because our teachers, they spoke and we listened.
Great. So if you'll just make sure your calendar is marked, we'll be back in January, and we will continue the conversation, thinking about some of our advanced learners, and we welcome y'all to come back and join us as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see what happens.
Nice meeting you, ladies.
It's a good way to show
The joyful
Everyone come visit us.
Oh, I will. This is crazy right now. I'm actually in the office too. I have custody of my grandkids, so I'm trying to raise them. And I got, by the way, I'm retired.
Guys, we forgot to say, but if you
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. That was very good.
actually, to add to the presentation for next time, please let us know.
And we should never forget that. That's why I took it to.
Today I am anyway. I really don't know if there's a high school person that was invited.
Yeah. It's just a busy time of year.
Yeah.
I know, the end of the 19th, I mean, 4 weeks, can you believe that?
Yeah, I might come over and visit
You've been in school for 4 weeks now?
I might come over and visit Cascade.
Well, no,
Okay. The only reason I say
counted
that
up
because
that
it's.
the 23rd would have been the end of the 4 weeks.
Oh,
That doesn't mean anything. It's just
she comes to see me a lot.
We're there every
I
day.
used to see you.
I know.
I don't anymore.
They've been for a while, yeah. Yeah, and Jeff,
His mom was really sick.
come on out, come on in. No, but I've been there, I went early, and it was just Dave, and he
Oh,
was so
probably
excited.
6'4". My neck was like
He
this.
sent me a
I've
note,
got
we
to
were together.
Oh my God, that's
I want to show you this.
that's
Okay,
right.
I'm coming.
Love to show up their building.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, that's Dr. Casey.
Guys, you know you have snacks over here. Somebody's got to eat some
Take
snacks.
some snacks, I'm gonna let, somebody should be in charge of taking the snacks back.
Okay, we'll do it. I will do it. Let me talk to the team.
Thank you for saying that.
It's just not hard. Like we can do the same thing. So
Without
without knowing, bro.
it was appropriate for preschool.
And I used to create curriculum in Texas for years. And so it's very flexible to be used in other states. Like, it's very open. It's not
But if that's what we're having to do, you know,
Yeah, I think it also like, there might be a point like, we have a really complex text, but really low level work, and then it can
And then
be
vice
flip-flopped.
versa, yeah, exactly.
Because while the text, like the readability might be really good.
There's flexibility.
Content and like the work that can be
the goal is still kindergarten ready.
Exactly.
she actually has a daughter in her school. She's been a English teacher. Wait, what's her name? It's your child.
Emma. Yeah, because I asked Levi. You know, I'm like,
That's a third.
it was really funny.
I always say my kids walk across the street in 8th grade.
two ideas, one ISS. I wasn't in your school last year, but still like just getting
Right. I know.
you know, like
Right.
it's so they're up there they're talking to everything, like then the kids aren't getting anything out of it, you know?
And the question I asked, can I say things like this?
Yeah.
And I love of those three, and that reason I asked who's that, because I think I'm trying to get people to come and staff
Yeah.
to like, this is what student discourse really looks like.
So what's happening in Master
It's really like, I just need about one person to have this as well, and like get somebody else to go see what they're doing, because it's like they don't believe in it until they see someone else do it, you know, like you can say it to like it always, but until one of their colleagues is like, no, we can do this, and it does make my group better. Did you? I didn't.
They would all default to that.
You know what, that's good.
Like, they default to whatever the first number is, like, in that
Oh.
sequence. So,
5.5?
well,
Yeah.
I was just like, how's it going? Because she had been in my building for a minute.
I would just do one.
Yeah, that's crazy, but that's so good for them.
You got 24 new
Not new
teachers.
teachers,
He's assigned,
but
like their
moving
grade
them
levels.
to theirs.
You know what?
And
They needed that.
I was ragging on you.
Yeah, I think.
good.
I was. No, seriously. And what I said was, pulling people to help. Realize, are you guys saying, hey guys, give me some notes.
Give me some help.
I said, yep.
Yeah, I'll bring them back.
That's keyboards can literally. I haven't had a single teacher push back.
It's truly your job, like, it's what you do.
But I think the thing of it is, I have done it. I mean, there's nothing, but it's a refresher. And it allows them to actually remember. Like somebody said, COVID's been here.
Right.
COVID's been here.
But it's not just teachers, it's teachers and
Kids,
Yeah.
because we said before, we just said, my teachers work the hardest in the classroom. My teachers and the kids are doing this. This says,
Earlier today, I was at Winter Park and they did Kagan training, which
I
feels
used
like
to
1,000
love
years
Kagan. I used to
ago.
love Kagan.
But he said, maybe it was Ryan and I talked to him, I was like, those parents, it would change their lives because they would see that their kids can do all of this work.
we're talking about how my teachers do all the work.
I want them to
I know, me too.
I know. And if we ever get some extra money, I do think that that's.
He said, well, I asked him because I was gonna send it to Cindy, and he said, it's like $5,400.
And I'm sure they think it's an actual.
He said, well worth it, but like
I almost feel like.
5,700 is what he said.